good one. Yeah. And David, I brought your name.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 102nd meeting of the Triangle Jewish Genealogical Society. And I'm happy to welcome you to the first live meeting since February 2020. And it's hard to believe that it's been that long in some ways, because this is sort of, meeting over Zoom has become normal, but this is actually what's normal. And it's great to see everybody. Do we have any guests today or people who have joined since we last met in person?
Oh, yes.
Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mimi Crystal, and I live in Durham. So thank you for choosing us.
Mimi, you have to tell us the origin of that last name of yours. Is that your married name, or
Yes.
is that okay?
Crystal. I believe, and it's spelled Krystel. I believe their name was Kristolovsky, and it became Crystal.
Okay. And are you researching that side
I'm
of the
doing
tree?
both. I'm doing my family more successful on my mother's father's side, not as successful on my father's side.
We can help with that,
I
maybe.
hope so.
Unless it's a Cohn, a Friedman, a Schwartz. But what countries?
I know that my paternal grandfather came from Ukraine. At the time, it was Russia, but yeah, somewhere in the Zitomir area.
Okay.
That much I know. On my mother's side, my mother's father was born in England. That's obviously not where they started, and I'm trying to go beyond that.
Okay. So, welcome. And I think, Steve, you've never been to a live meeting of ours before, have you?
I have. We moved here in August of 2019,
Okay.
and I came to a meeting probably in November or December. But since I joined, we have some exciting news.
What's that?
Stan and I made a presentation through the Chapel Hill Durham Hadassah. It was open to the whole Durham Chapel Hill Jewish community. It was held in May. It's a two-hour presentation. The first part of the program was in kind of an antiques roadhouse where people could present their family heirlooms and talk about the meaning of the family heirloom. And then Stan took the second hour. I hosted the first hour, and Stan hosted the second hour, and he had the whole presentation on Jewish genealogy tools and resources. And guess what? The Raleigh Jewish Federation, the Raleigh Erie Hadassah, is now wants us on October 29th to present for the whole Raleigh area through the JCC. So we are so excited. It's really taken off. I don't think it's ever been presented before in that way to the Raleigh community, and it's a way for people to bring heirlooms and family treasures like I have on Trockenbrod, which is the Jonathan Safran Ford town that my great-grandfather wrote. This book is written in Yiddish and English. It's written in 1940. Great-grandfather. So I'm very grateful to Stan, and I will want to talk to you, Barbara, and Debbie afterwards, because I am been contacted by a Sunday school, Temple Beth Or. They're looking for someone to come in to Sunday school to a class to talk about Jewish genealogy. And I can't do it because of his other presentations I'm working on. So we'll talk after the meeting.
We'll put something in the newsletter as well. Thank you so
I'm
much.
so excited to be
What's
here.
your last name?
That's great.
Friedman. But Schwartz is my Trockenbrod.
Is it E-E or I-E?
I.E.
Okay.
Barbara's an EE.
I'm an EED Friedman. I always call that the Irish spelling of Friedman. My husband's grandfather was actually named Arbus. And he chose, you can see it on his citizenship papers, he chose Friedman, spelled EED. But that's good, it's easier for me. I don't have to remember which comes first. Some of you know that I broke my leg in April, and this is where I am. I'm walking with a walker. There's a genealogy connection, sort of, to my broken leg. I was in Dallas for a meeting, and I wanted to see the Kimball Museum, which is in Fort Worth. Mainly because of the building, although it has a wonderful art collection. The building is very unusual. And so I took an Uber from the hotel in Dallas to Fort Worth, and as I got out of the Uber, I tripped on a curb, and that's the story of my knee. The architect who designed the building that I was wanting to see is Louis Kahn. He was a Philadelphia architect, and I'm from Philadelphia, who designed buildings where you could pretty much see the structure and the heaviness of the buildings. He was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He was very well known. He designed a dormitory at my college, which was kind of weird because I went to a women's college and he was not, his relationships with women weren't so hot. He had 3 children with 3 different women in his lifetime, 2 of whom he was not married to, 2 of whom he worked with in his architecture firm. I mean, it's not a pretty story, but his buildings are fabulous. He was born in Estonia around 1903, and his family came to the United States about 1907 or 1908, and the family was extremely poor because I know a lot about Philadelphia and seeing where they lived. Most of the immigrants lived in poor neighborhoods, but this one was really poor, but somehow he managed to go to a very fine architecture school and have a wonderful career. Unfortunately, he died in the restroom at Penn Station in New York, coming back from a trip. He'd been to India and he was taking the train back to Philadelphia. Louis Kahn, a very fine architect. So I never actually got to see the movie. This past week was the 2023 International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies meeting, and it was in London at the Hotel Park Plaza. If you're on any of the Facebook pages that talk about Jewish genealogy, you may have seen some postings. Our own Jarrett Ross, who is on the board of the IAJGS, posted a lot of pictures. And he also had a family reunion. He has a lot of family from Holland. And they had a reunion and went to Bevis Mark Synagogue together and so forth. So we hope that Jared will be able to give us a program sometime on the meeting. Our next meeting will be on Zoom. It will be October 29th. Our featured speaker is Janice Sellers, whose program is titled, Bubby, Who Are You? Finding the Maiden Names in Your Family Tree, which is not an insignificant problem, as we all know. Our program today comes from some of our most beloved members. Debbie is going to kick it off with some information about artificial intelligence and its use in genealogy research.
Thank you, Barbara. Let's see if we can get some of this technology to work, since we're going to be using artificial technology. Otherwise, we'll see. Barbara, please be careful.
Yes.
It's so good and so challenging to meet people again. It's just, it's been a roller coaster for me trying to get the technology back together. I haven't taught in person in almost 3 years. All of my real estate classes are on Zoom. So now I realize, especially with working with Al Gershman today, who's going to be doing the program after I am, that I need to upgrade all of my equipment. My stuff is now 3, 4, 5 years old. And I want to thank Lee for helping out our members who can't be here but wanted to be involved in some way. And I know Stan's going to be talking with me a little bit later about creating more hybrid meetings. But the real purpose, as Barbara and I discussed many times, was to see each other again. It's just been a long time, and genealogists are used to socializing, whether it's at family reunions or at these meetings where we learn and gather new information together. So I'm really grateful you made the trip all the way out in 90-plus degree weather to meet in Durham. One of the subjects that my real estate students are very interested in are the possible uses of artificial intelligence in real estate. And as I tried to meet that educational gap, I started to get further and further into ChatGPT. You've probably heard of ChatGPT. And Bard, my husband, works for IBM, so technology is something that we talk about sometimes at the dinner table. So I started to look around for information about how could ChatGPT enhance our work as genealogists. for those of you who haven't had much interaction with what all the young people are talking about, I thought it might be good to start with this relatively short video program. You might recognize this lady, Amy Johnson Crow. She's a well-known vlogger. And I apologize, one of the things I forgot was my attached speaker, so you'll have to listen very carefully, and I'll turn up the volume.
Disastrous results. So it might surprise you that you can use AI and things like ChatGPT successfully in your genealogy research.
Let's try that sound again. Let's see if this one works. Some of you may know this lady who also does a lot of vlogging on the subject of, well, just on general subjects
Make that connection.
about genealogy. Let me see, her name is Lisa Cook. How many of you are familiar with her? Okay. Lisa doesn't just focus on Jewish genealogy, but rather on all kinds of genealogy. And she tried to use BARD, which is Google's artificial intelligence. And she made an amazing and shocking discovery about it. Let's see if we can get this to work.
You make a conscious decision
Please work.
about.
And what you might have noticed in the agenda is that I have the two links for you. The first link will give you an explanation in about 10 minutes of what ChatGPT will do. Most of the mistakes that I've seen are that people confuse ChatGPT with Google. It's not a search engine. It's like if you were to use it like a search engine, it would be using PowerPoint to send your email. And that's what Lisa actually figures out. She says, tell me something about my ancestor, Olaf Svensson III. And what BARD does is makes up a complete biography. It makes it up. And she calls BARD on it. She says, you're lying. And BARD responds by saying, I know, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And it goes on to generate, more of an apology. What I learned from watching these two videos is that AI has to be used very, very carefully. You have to put if you ask it to do your family tree, ChatGPT won't even do it because it says there's too much personal stuff in there, and I only go up to 2021 anyway. BARD apparently makes things up, but if you put information in about your ancestors and say, create a biography, that it will do. It'll be very pedestrian prose. It won't be anything spectacular, but you can use it to help shape some of the content. Yeah.
I was recently at a Durham Orange Genealogical Society meeting, and this was discussed. And it turns out that the other thing you can do is, like, say you have a typed will, like a long, complicated will. You can put that in and say, make a table with everybody mentioned in the will, with how much they inherit, and it'll do it beautifully.
Yeah,
So,
and the Lisa, not Lisa, but Amy shows how to do that with all kinds of documents. So if you can get your documents into a readable format, maybe using OCR technology, but basically type in that will or whatever, a census, it can, and you say put it into a table. It can be a very helpful thing to do. You wanted to? Yeah,
I just wanted to say, the problem of it making stuff up, which the AI folks call hallucinating, which I think is a little too anthropomorphic, is a huge problem even with modern people. So I asked it to write a 2-paragraph biography, it being ChatGPT, a 2-paragraph biography of her. And I never knew how accomplished a wife I had, but it,
leading a double life.
leading a double life. She's a professor of psychology at UC San Diego, and she's published. And my first thought was, well, there must be somebody with a similar name on the faculty at UC San Diego. So I went to their faculty director, but no, there's not. It just made it up. And I tried it with the same question, same prompt, with a biography of me, and it did a little bit better. I would say about half of what it wrote was true, and maybe a quarter of it, I could imagine how it could have been confused, and a quarter of it was just total garbage. So you really have to be careful when you ask it to do some research, as versus what you said, reading a particular document and producing some sort of synopsis.
Right. So again, I do encourage you to look at these two videos to see the good and the bad and the ugly. There are people out there who, when they find out I like to do family trees, they think I just press a button. Like they might see on one of the television shows and all of a sudden a tree just sprouts with all of their ancestors. And I go, well, AI can probably do that sometime down the road, but it won't be right. Yes?
Are these links online somewhere? Chances of typing all that inaccurate.
What I can do is send that out. I'll send it to Ava, who's going to be doing a summary of the meeting, and then you'll have it. Okay? Because I think, and you can also Google, if you don't want to type in that long URL, you can Google it as well. I am a little bit concerned about whether Al is going to be able to show us his wonderful program, knowing that I have now had some problems. But Al, let me go ahead and introduce you. Al is one of our longtime directors. I think all of our directors and all of our board members have been elected for life. So if you ever want to come on the board, you just have to let us know, and we'll see what we can do to add you to our board. All right, let's see if I can get this to work.
Debbie, can I ask an AI question?
Sure.
For years, my heritage has been telling me that I need to correct my great-great-grandfather's age because the family tree shows that he was having children in his 80s, and we all know that's just not possible. Well, guess what? What made him famous in our family was that he had one or two children in his 80s.
God bless.
And so, of course, I haven't changed the date, but is that kind of thing early AI, where the platforms are looking at trees?
I don't think it's AI. I think it's just
No, this is the problem, okay? There's a lot of bad data being proliferated. I have some cousin who's got everybody with the same name listed. This morning I came across a tree. This lady had 18 children, just because, and she listed them as under her grandfather because they all had the same last name. And people are copying this.
Yes.
And the internet is seeing this. And a proliferation of bad data. And then somebody goes and says, well, I see 8 instances of this, and you're the only one that's different. Okay? I've been at this almost 40 years, and I haven't broken 5,000 people. And that includes my in-laws' family. Okay? That includes my son's daughter's family. Okay? Because I prescribe to one important detail. Genealogical proof standard. If you cannot be assured that that is the person you are looking for, don't put it in your tree. Make a separate tree that's not online and keep it there for research.
Come on up, Al.
Oh, okay.
Up from the podium, so to speak. I think Lee has successfully diagnosed the problem, so I'm hoping, put you into PowerPoint mode, that it works.
So that's the problem. We're going to be talking about bad data here, including, because these are some of the pitfalls. Actually, hi, my name is Al Gershman. Okay? My bio is wrong. Okay? It doesn't say 3,000, it's really close to 5,000. I've been at it quite a while. It is an obsession, a labor of love. I've had so many amazing miracles. We're going to share some of them with you.
Al, could I make a request?
Yes,
Could you stand on this side, because then I can get a
I
bit?
can't get to
Oh,
the keyboard.
okay, that's fine. I
You
can
don't
get
need me.
it. Well, I can get both of you.
Okay. I need to check my pointer. Okay, is this working? Okay. Got it? Okay. So obviously I grew up in a place in Brooklyn called Bensonhurst. That's not my beard. Okay? And we are all mutants, and I love putting puzzles back together. So we're talking about memories. Okay? My memories evolve around my Jewishness. I'm a gastronomic Jew. Okay? I believe in all these things, and if you're from Brooklyn or from New York, you recognize Katz's and Ebbets Field and a whole bunch, Gus's Pickles, which isn't there anymore, Nathan's, of course, all these things that have come and gone, and I connect my Jewishness, or at least I did, to food. It's always about food. And for those who understand Yiddish too, because I grew up in a Yiddish-speaking household. So join me down memory's lane, and we're going to talk about those things. Okay, what's important here is that the Egyptians did this successfully. Okay, they buried because they wanted to travel to the afterlife, and they came to the afterlife. Okay, through us, because we remember them. We know their entire dynasty because they recorded it. Okay, and there's obviously part of my dynasty, this young lady here from Queens. And like all good people on their tomb or tombstone, put a butterfly because they were a gardener or a shovel or a violin, okay? And Barbara knows that I've been working on mine. This will appear on mine as a genealogist. And all I can tell you is that this circle is this lady. Need I say any more? You understand where I am, where my kids are, and my grandchildren are. Okay, we're not advanced.
Is it not going?
Yeah, we're not moving.
Debbie, unplug the USB cable and plug it back in again.
This one?
Yeah, that helps.
We'll be doing this quite a bit.
I saw that bottle of Tums in your gastronomic.
We'll be talking about lactate.
Oh, lactose intolerance?
Well, maybe.
Me too.
You never know what you'll find in your genes. I'm going to go back
That
a
was
little
one of
further.
the four
Okay.
fevers in my
So,
daughter's.
okay,
All right, so what we're
So-
going to do is we're going to
okay. So, we're talking about what's your short horizon? Oh yeah, Ukraine, Belarus, okay. That's my short horizon. That's my goal, all right, to do that. I want to know something further back. I want to know who I'm made out of, what stuff I'm made out of, who put me together, who contributed to my disease. I want to go beyond Brooklyn, beyond Eastern Europe, beyond wherever I can. And it's really important to me. We have time machines. Remember Sherman and Peabody? They went back in time, okay? Obviously, H.G. Wells and, Back to the Future. And we want to see if we can get back from George Jetson to there. It says, Yin and Himmel, Jews in the sky, okay? Okay, let's hope this works.
You may have to.
Okay,
we have these problems.
we have these problems.
Oh,
Oh,
we have to go over here.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay,
Just
whoa,
go
let's
to
go
the-
back.
Just go to that.
All right, it's just.
Where are we? Oh,
Right over here.
we're over here, okay. So, there's a lot of things going on in my head, and I like busy slides, okay? Sure, I can identify, the Beth Shalom, which I'm a member. There's that Gershman Ketzel, cat, okay? I can identify with Moses and with the Tomb of the Patriarchs, the stories that are told by your grandparents. My first analysis was 88% Ashkenazi, 5% Southern European, 3% Scandinavian. Yeah, I travel with Viking cruise lines a lot, but that's not because of that. Asia Minor, maybe Turkey, really strange stuff. The pale, okay, the 12 tribes, which aren't necessarily the same as the 12 sons of Jacob. There's been some substitutions. And of course, I always can identify with Tevye. He's the man. And then Moses is pointing, the Yad is pointing at the Torah, pointing at me, the cat's pointing, Tevye is pointing, saying, go forth and find out who you're made of. Okay, as we adapt. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on in my head. Do I prescribe to Darwin over here, or Arthur C. Clarke? And all the other stuff in here that we talk about ancient aliens. Okay, which is the real Garden of Eden? How can I do this? How can I resolve this? Because I need to. Those of you that can't read this, it says Nakatum Borvis. It's naked and barefoot. So, which is the real one? What can I believe? And can I coexist these things? And that's the kind of ethical dilemma that I'm faced with.
Have you traced yourself back to either of the right or left over there?
We will get there. We will get there. Stan, don't jump. Okay, so obviously it's related to food because I had some other analysis. Of course, Kishki is always involved. Okay, 4% Chinese food, Asia, 85% pastrami, 11% hummus, and that's all equal to 100% schmaltz. So, but we have this other analysis here, which says 95.2 Ashkenazi, 5% Sephardic, and 2.5% Balkan. Whoa, that's interesting. So, and there's more, because every time they run an analysis and change their formula, you get a different analysis, the companies. Okay, so what kind of a Jew are you? Well, obviously, Eastern European, obviously, American, it says a Balkan, okay? Maybe there's something going on over here, I don't know. And I wish I had the sound, because these guys, if I play this, saying, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai, and where does that come from? So, how did they get that? Was it the missionaries that gave it to them? I don't know. Okay, so here is my latest breakdown. We have first 10 chromosomes, okay? A klein shtickle over here. Middle East Jewish and Middle East. This says cholent. That's a mixture of different foods. You like cholent. And it kind of says, and it's this is what intrigued me. How did we get to this? Anatolia, Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent. And you're looking at this little piece here and this little piece here, which you can hardly see. A little bit. How did that get in there? That's what really is intriguing me. Okay, so some basics. We all have 22 autosomal chromosomes, pairs, and we either have 2 X's or 2 Y's, okay, and we'll talk a little more about that. And mitochondrial DNA, they don't determine things about you. Mitochondrial DNA serves to process energy, convert your food into energy stores that the body can use. It's a housekeeper. You get mitochondrial DNA from your mother, okay? And definitely not Luxury, which looks the same. Okay? I would have loved to play this for you. This is an example of how DNA divides, but this is not going to run. And how it crosses over, it splits. When we talk about centimorgans is a relationship of the probability that breaks will occur in these chromosomes and cross over. It's a little more deep than that, but if you think about it, when you're comparing centimorgans, just think about it as you have as many jelly beans as the next person. And I think that's an easier way to understand. So I'm sorry that this is not playing. Okay, my personal story for my dad, which kind of leads me through to DNA, is that they need to get out of Europe. Things are bad, you know that. You've done your research. Okay, August 27th, 1921. My dad and his family walked out of this building in Liverpool, got on a ship called the Carmania, which landed in Ellis Island. Well, it didn't land in Ellis Island, landed in the docks. First and second class passengers got off, and they were taken by ferry to Ellis Island. Lots of things going. Eugenists talking about tainted aliens, new immigration law in effect. Doors of immigration are closing in 1924. They basically slammed shut, trickled shut. So here, in September 19, 2022, I get off the Viking Mars and cross the street and take this picture. 101 years later, I'm back in the same spot, almost the same pier as my parents left from. And they all came from this town in Ukraine called Mazhirich. And here they are kind of grown up in America with their spouses. When they came to America, they wound up in this building here on Henry Street. And if you see the plaque, that's the Henry Street settlement. It got bought up and turned into Henry Street, if you're familiar with that. It's like a Y kind of thing for the betterment. This menu is from the night before they landed in America. Imagine finding that online. So it's a Cunard Line ship. They bought up White Star after the Titanic disaster. Can you imagine putting a four-masted ship on your menu with fish circling it? That's really bad taste. Okay, this is the Gershman distribution 100 years later. This is where all my cousins, my aunts, and my uncles kind of lived. This is my personal one from Bensonhurst to Fuquay Marina. Ship from the bell, the bell from the ship, such and such. So there's a little background about my dad's story. Let me get here. Scroll down. Oh, don't do this to me. So we are here. Now we want to be here. Okay. Yeah, the little guy is me. So DNA is separated off of inheritance percentage. I get 50% from my father. DNA, I get 50% from my mother. My brother also gets 50% from our father and our mother. And such a relationship. And these are ideal percentages. Now, my brother or my sister, we have approximately 50% of our parents, but in a different order. Okay, because when DNA divides during mitosis, okay, and recombines slightly different. So this is a kind of generalized thing. You have a sheet I gave you, which we'll eventually show, which talks about ranges which are possible in looking for it, and that's this sheet, okay?
Oh.
And it talks about when you're looking for someone, how you can approximate how they're related to you. But then again, as you will see, this doesn't always hold true. There are exceptions to this rule too. Okay, so here's some of my cousins. This is my heritage. I took my family tree DNA, exported the raw data file, and imported it into my heritage. Okay, and you can do that with some of them. So here are some people. Here's this Joan Rome. All these people who are bold, I actually know. I've already identified them. Here's this lady here on the top, Joan Rome, on the top of my list. She's got one person in her tree. How can I do anything with that? Google this and Google. I've written down 3 times. Either she's dead or she doesn't care. And I can't figure out who Joan Rome is, no matter what I do. Even if I try to build her tree, when I can't find somebody, I can't do anything, I start building out their tree to see who their relatives are. And I couldn't go anywhere with this lady. Okay, so here's Joan Rome, right up here. She has 1 person on her tree. Here's Edwina Rich, has 185 people on her tree. I have a match. We all kind of match at this point. This is called triangulation. Okay? For 10.5 centimorgans. Not a lot, but we all overlap. Edwina Rich appears as a single entity in somebody else's tree. Okay, so that's a dead end. And here's somebody, Tilly Hannah Levin, who's got 77,000 people in a tree. As I said, I've been at this 40 years, and I haven't broken 5,000. 77,000. I went to go look at her tree. It's one of those trees where if you've got the name Cone, she's got 40 cones listed. It's just people collecting stuff in hopes of doing something.
Yeah.
So you come across a tree that looks like this, okay? Steer away from it. Okay? Nobody can do this unless you find somebody who's related to royalty in Europe. Okay, I did my daughter-in-law's tree. Okay, we were able to go in 3 days back to the Vikings reliably. That's how much data was out there. And she doesn't have 77,000 people on her tree. Okay, so the other one is that I exported my data to is GenMatch. Okay, here's some people I know. I know this person, Seth Bogert, Elaine. Okay, Mark Feinstein is a 3rd cousin. Jenna Weisberg is a 3rd cousin. And you get centimorgans that are on the same database, the same algorithm. And these people may have had their DNA done by 23andMe. They had, Ancestry, My Family Tree, any agency. As long as you export your data to them, you can compare them. One thing about this database, when you agree to give them your data, you now enter a forensic database, okay, in which the FBI and the police can use yours to solve crime, okay? Being totally free and clear, having the blessing of my rabbi, I entered the database. Okay, so what does that mean? You have an expectation that between databases, you can compare centimorgans, data, and that's not true, you can't. Okay, if you're expecting apples to apples, you find out there are many kinds of apples. Yes, they're all apples, but there are many different kinds, okay? I like Charlie Brown, and okay, this thing stops jumping around. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I will tell you this is my first DNA success. It has nothing to do with DNA. What happened here was I've been stalking this family online, trying to find a connection for years, because they had this very unique last name called Dufine. And I have never been able to find anybody. They're in Philadelphia, we're in New York, okay, and I'm looking and looking and looking. And then I come across on my family DNA this Alicia, where is she? Alicia Joy Weiss, and she's got a tree, and I look at it, and it's that family, okay? And she says she has Dufine in there. So I contact her. I said, what do you know? Do you have anything? And she says to me, Are you related to David Gershman, who sponsored the ship passage of Mordecai Dufine at the Blitzen Bank in Philadelphia? I says, no. Similar, Gershman, no. And I go look at this file, and apparently he's in Orgiv, Bessarabia, but the record says he's registered in Tuchin, Ukraine. Whoa! Wow! So he's my great-grandfather, and I've done a presentation on him. Avraham Wolf Dufine, I'm named after him. I'm Avraham Zev, named Wolf. And I find out that Mizerich, Ukraine is 14 miles from Tuchin. Luckily, there are 4 revision lists online. If you ever come across a revision list, it's loaded with stuff. It's a census. Revision list was for tax purposes, so you know they wouldn't lose track of it. And 14, and guess what emerges? This tree. Now, here's my great-grandfather. I am now able to go back to his great-grandfather, and even his great-great-grandfather. And the name populates backwards, because 1804, the brick wall, where names were given out, you had patronymics, right? Mendel, son of, and so here, these people had, and so I populated the name backwards. And I got this tree. And you know something? I got this guy's record. This guy's record is a Holocaust survivor. He gave testimony. So I had to populate down that tree. And it turns out that Alicia and my great-grandfather, our second great-grandmother, because she's a generation below me, were first cousins. We only have a few centimorgans, 25 centimorgans between us. That's like, what's at the bottom of the barrel? I can't see it. It's just strange. It just so happens that the DNA pointed me to her and pointed me to the record. And I was lucky enough. Not everybody can find these records. I was lucky to find them. And it turns out our common ancestor is this guy, Hirsch Dufine. And we are 4th cousins once removed. Anybody know any 4th cousins once removed? You do, of course. And all because of this was online at Jewish Gen, those records. It was amazing that my first DNA success.
Did you learn anything about Dufine, the name?
Well, there is one more Dufine family that I have, and they claim descendancy, French descendancy. And they believe that the name is meaning from Dauphine. Okay? I don't believe that because if you look in Alexander's book on last names, okay, Dufine was actually a given name. It wasn't one you picked. It tends to lead to someone needs poor. So you couldn't afford to buy your name when names had to be taken, pauper. So that somebody gave you a name. Don't blame me like Alexander Bible.
Yeah.
Al, I just want to make sure I understand. You still wouldn't have made the connection without that phone call. Is that correct?
Well, email, yes, I would
Or
have made.
email.
Right. So it's really important if you suspect something, okay? So you got to be careful about what you suspect, okay?
And those revision lists.
The revision lists were good because they repeated 1816, 1834, 1858, and it was one in between. And it was very good because you could track the individual from revision list to revision list. And it was amazing. It was grouped by households and what your parents' name were, what your kids' name were. Just amazing.
And those are on Jewish Gen?
These was on Jewish Gen. Not everybody has those revision lists done.
Alright, so
I got lucky.
you were looking at this Dufine family because you knew you had Dufine in your family?
Right. I was looking at it and saying, well, first names kind of repeat, and that's kind of our tradition. We name people after name. I'm named after that guy with the beard. He was a blacksmith in Ukraine. The reason they had beards, so that the sparks would fly into the beards and burn the beard, not the face. So if you see lots of pictures of blacksmiths, they usually have beards. And if you get a close-up, you can see one eye is this way and one eye is that way. So he must have caught a spark in his eye. Okay, so there's that Dufine tree. It's 11 generations deep and it has 556 things. This, to me, this tree from the Charting Companion is an easier way to see the whole tree. Yeah, you can't read it, but you can zoom in and see the details. To do a regular tree is kind of crazy. Charting Companion, okay. I got that here during Hanukkah one time. I won that. We had a giveaway. It was a great thing, okay.
You want to do that again this Hanukkah?
Yes.
Another giveaway?
I'll give you back. I had not 2 copies, so I'll give you back. And a family tree maker version 8, I think. Unsealed. So this is the kind of trees that I like, because when you show it to people, they go, "Whoa!"
Who else has an 11 generation tree?
Maybe Jared Ross does?
Yeah, he goes back. That's amazing.
But we'll talk about generations and what they mean, okay? So chromosomes and gefilte fish. Okay, autosomal, that's 22 chromosomes. You find them, you look for matches that are high centimorgans, high percentage of DNA, the number of sex, the longer center. The more you have, the better quality your match will be. That's all I can tell you. It's really good. Y chromosome is, I get it from my dad, who got it from his dad, who got it from his dad, who got it from his dad. We can go on for a long time. And we can talk about paternal descendants and male cousinship. Okay, because if I have it, and my name is Gershman, and I have a cousin by the name of Gershman, unless they're adopted, or they change their name, they're going to have the same Y DNA. So I took my Y DNA for the family, because I wanted to find out what's going on. Why? We'll talk about chromosomes that combine and those that mutate. They really don't combine. Mitochondrial DNA is very similar. Female ethnic ancestry, maternal descendants, and siblingship. Helps you determine whether people are, gives you a clue. Nothing is absolute in DNA. And of course, my favorite, X. A lot of stuff that's missed that people don't talk about the X chromosome. To me, that's my favorite, and we'll talk about that. And it points out lots of things called endogamy. Family tree DNA. You get something called an X match. Have you ever seen that? An X match? Okay, family tree DNA does Y, does mitochondria, and does X matching. Ancestry doesn't do that. I'm not sure about the 23andMe, and they do testing for the Y and the mitochondria. And although they don't have a lot of other people, not as many as some of the other services, you learn a lot by doing it with that organization.
Al, could you give us a 30-second definition of endogamy, just for people who...
Endogamy, okay? I will show you what endogamy looks like, okay? So here is the Y chromosome. Is me, my dad, my grandpa. Okay, I get my Y, my dad, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and they all, hopefully, until maybe 1804, had the same last name, Gershman. Before that, who knows? Could have been Mendel the Schlepper. From my mother, I get, why not? Did you clean up your room? Why not? Did you do your homework? why not? So I don't get a why, I get a why not from me. Okay, now we can go back to this guy up here who started this Y, and we can see that all his male descendants with that same last name, okay, unless they are change their name, okay, but they still might have it. They all populate down. So my cousins with the name Gershman have the same Y DNA that I do. Unless you have a metronomic last name. Talk about metronomic. Okay. Well, let's talk about it now. So my grandson's name is Terry. Okay? His name is Terry Gershman, but he wasn't born Terry Gershman, he was born Terry Allison. But he wanted to be more Jewish than his paternal side. And so he uses the name and legally has it changed to Gershman. But his mother is Gershman, not his father. So he has a matronymic last name. It's taken from the mother's name. Okay, so he doesn't have my Y chromosome. He has an Allison chromosome. Y chromosome. Okay. So let's take a look at that. Okay? Here's a distribution of Y chromosomes, Y haplogroups they call them. Okay? And I happen to test for RM124 is my haplogroup. It's a subclade of R2. Hi, cousin. Hi. This says for Drake. Turn it around. Okay? And you'll not see R2 on this list. It's very rare amongst Jews. What? What? I can do via hafta standing on my head. Ashkenazi Jews who test are sometimes surprised because it's rare amongst Jews. It's less than 1% of all Jewish men. Okay? It began in South Asia, and it's a sudden spread there to West Central Asia and Southern Europe. Not here. Very, very rare. Okay, what were those two little segments I had on that chart? You know, Mesopotamia, right? Oh, now you got my juices flowing. I want to know what that's all about. Okay, so here's this migration chart. You'll see here, not really, but here's R, goes to Southern Asia. R2, it's not even shown on this here. R is shown, the cursor to it, okay, which was 30,000 years ago. Okay? And then splits to R1, which becomes R1 and R&B in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe. So I'm down here. Apparently, this RM124 is exhibited by a lot of people who live in India, amongst gypsies. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, and it's kind of related to Mizrahi Jew. Ah, that's that Middle Eastern thing. So my male side may have come from the Middle East. That's what I'm looking for. Maybe I can trace myself back, you know. It's also sometimes called Oriental Jew. That's why I like the Chinese food. So, let's talk about some of the things here. We talk about SNPs, and he's worried about that. Mr. Cut of what? And short tandem repeats. So, to talk to you about is that in your chromosome you may have this. This is 5 repeats of the same sequence. This is 6 repeats, 7 repeats. okay? A single nucleotide polymorphism occurs in a single position, okay? Where here you have an A and over here you have a T, okay? Adenine and thymine. So it becomes important because of the next slide. Okay, I belong to, through Family Tree DNA, a walk through the Y project to see how we all might be connected, what are the origins of this. And here I am. That's me. And he's right down here. Me, where it says me. And it says, hi, these are all Jews. And my cousins, who all speak Arab. Semitic? Oh yeah, definitely. An Arab? I don't know. Jewish, yes. But I'm connected to them. Ah, wait a second, I can feel it. Okay? Abraham had 3 wives. Right? Who said 2? 3. And Sarah, Hagar, and Keturah. Oh, you don't know about Keturah. That's my other presentation, which is biblical genealogy, and we can talk about that. And that is really a soap opera. So here I am. I've got Arab-speaking cousins, and I can prove it. Am I Semitic? Well, apparently so. At least on my male chromosome. Gershman, you want to buy a camel? Okay, now we're talking about mitochondria. And leading the pack is the balabusta. Okay? And mitochondria, as I said, is located in the mitochondrial cells that convert energy from food into a form cells can use. Human mitochondrial DNA was the first significant part of the human genome to be sequenced. Mitochondrial comes from your mother. It says so right here. Mother's mitochondria. It took almost a week to make that slide. Okay? And here is not to be mistaken for the gefilte fish. What else? So, let's see what we can do with this. So, by the way, this is a passport photo of my grandmother and my mother taken with a Galaxy Zero immigration. Believe that? See me afterwards. I got a
So
bridge for you.
when did the passport photos come in? Because they certainly weren't in 1907.
This was in 1921.
Oh,
Wow.
1921. So I get, it's passed down the female line, okay, from my mother to my sister, me, and my brother. You get mitochondrial DNA from your mother. If you're a male, you can't pass it on, only the female can pass it on. But I can trace it back and look at where the source of that was. And we'll take a look at that right now. Well, we'll talk about distribution first. So here's the distribution, okay? Obviously Star Wars steals from real life. Here's a midichlorian that Jedi have. If you are a descendant of a female, whether you're male or female, okay, from that same common female, you have that same mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA don't combine like normal chromosomes or the X chromosome, but they mutate over long periods of time. I'm going to talk more about that. Everything is coming.
so you and your brother and your sister have identical
Yeah,
mitochondrial DNA.
Right, and I can trace back to our common female ancestors and tell my cousins which of them had that mitochondria. Okay, here you go. I'm haplogroup, mitochondrial DNA, haplogroup H6A1A1A, okay? What's interesting part about that is this here segment is non-Jewish. It's this here, 81% from here to here. Okay? So if you're Ashkenazi, it's 81% that you didn't descend from a Jewish family. Okay? So, here's this story here. So the story is your mother was Jewish, you're Jewish. Hogwash. That was made up by rabbis of old. It's a myth because of this. Okay? Well, they're taking care of the kids. Well, dad is off wandering and maybe planting some things. And he comes home with somebody, says, "Hi, honey, this is your new kid." And so the rabbis saw this as a problem. They said, we need to change that. Well, it's a male-dominated society. It's kind of, everything comes from the male, in Hebrew, in Jewish culture. Why this is different? Because they felt that they could keep the home, the Jewish identity solid by saying, if your mother was Jewish, you're Jewish. And the rest of it's a myth. Look it up. And you'll find a lot of, don't look it up in the Chabad. I'll tell you something different. Okay? And all because of this thing here, the wandering Jew. And this refers to Ashkenazi. Again, a lot of my stuff, I talk about Ashkenazi. Okay, and so there's she's still swimming. This is a migration pattern. I'm in the H group, and you can see that's Northern Europe. Maybe that's Scandinavian. But basically, it came out of Africa, through Asia, into Europe 35 to 50,000 years ago. Really interesting stuff. These are the migration patterns for mitochondrial DNA. I know I'm going fast. Okay, and now, here's the resistance, the X chromosome. Okay? Here's the rule, guys. You never get an X chromosome from your dad or you'd be a girl. You only get a Y chromosome. And it comes down here. Here's you. You get a Y from dad, an X from mom. Okay? She gets one of her mom's chromosomes, and she gets an X from here because she's a female. You can't get an X from dad. This whole tree is out of the picture. Okay? Scully and Mulder, X files. Okay? If you're a female, obviously you get an X from mom, and you get an X from dad. If you get a Y from dad, you're not a girl. Okay? Thing about that is, dad gets his X chromosome from his mother. These two go through meiosis. You get a combined X chromosome passes to dad. He can't combine it with his Y. He just passes it on. He's a placeholder. The one that comes from mom goes through meiosis, and you get a combined X. So one of these comes from her, and one of these comes from her. It skips a generation. It's a handle. There you go. And again, it's a Fibonacci sequence, if you're interested in Fibonacci. Okay, so here's the chart. Here's your inheritance. If you're a guy, you start here. If you're a female, you start here. So, as you see, if I get an alternating generations, okay, it skips a generation. The halving skips a generation. If I get it strictly from the female side, it keeps dividing and dividing. So what you get on your X varies by where it falls. Okay? The interesting part about that is that no two successive male generations can pass an X chromosome. becomes important because if you go back and get this thing called X matching, it's a blind item in many cases. And I'll show you why. Fibonacci, okay? Petals, flowers have, in general, petals that correspond. There's a sunflower, and if you understand a little Russian, that's Shemetsky, sunflower seed. You go to Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, you'll see them all over, because they're kaying and spying, chewing and spitting. It's a joke, I know. Okay, so some of these assertions here. If your dad and his sibling, or you and your brother have different Y DNA, and they have different fathers. Your son and you have different DNA, and he is not your son. If your son and you have the same YD, it doesn't prove he's your son, or maybe the son of some other male in your tree, like a brother, uncle, paternal male cousin, or maybe your dad. Be very careful how you apply your DNA rules. Okay? And of course, we talked about the X DNA. The one that's really important here is the Schwiger alert, mother-in-law alert. Ladies, your daughter has your mother-in-law's X chromosome, and you can do nothing about it, and it's all your husband's fault. That's always. I'm too bad this isn't running live because the transitions are really fun. Okay? So here's this, we did a DNA test, and we'll get to that DNA test. I'm always getting to it. In 2018, one of the things came out was this X matching. Okay? So our common relative here is this guy, Leibich Sinowitz, Yehuda Leib, his formal Hebrew name. And three of my cousins, Len, Margaret, and Stanley, all third cousins, who participated in the test, have an X match to me, but none of them coincide. Endogamy. They're related to me another way, but not through this common relative. I'm the only one that carries this guy's X chromosome. None of these other people, because no two male generations. There's a break, all of these breaks. So that's an interruption of the flow of that X chromosome from the. Okay, so my grandson, Terry, has 12.5% of his fourth great grandfather's X chromosome, while only 1.56 of his was. That's crazy. Okay? And his daughter will have also 12.5%. He's only 17, I'm not Russian. But he does have a chufro. Okay, so let's talk about mishpucha. Okay? So they say that a generation is 30 years. So let's go back to 1 CE, common era, year 1. Okay? That's 2023 divided by 30, 67 generations. Okay? And 2 to the 67th power is hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions, pentillions, 14 pentillion ancestors I have, okay, when Jesus was born. What?
And you only found 1,000?
What? Something wrong here. Something wrong. Is this Bupkis? Wasn't there a bottleneck event? Maybe it was the Black Plague. Some study says that all Ashkenazi Jews are 30th cousins. Well, that would take us down to the 28th power. Okay, not to the 30th. So, and definitely not Manny Mochek. Let's put I came across this chart, okay, which says, these are all people who lived on the earth. How they derived this chart, I don't know, but it's good for the presentation. Here's the one CE, and you'll see number of people ever born at 1 CE are 55 trillion. Wait, I'm in the pentillions. Okay, how could that be? How could that be? We're not headed for good times down here in 2050, I'll tell you that. this is kind of enlightening. Where am I missing something? Is there a gap somewhere in my understanding? Well, it's called endogamy. Okay? Just some examples, okay? Here's an extreme case, the Habsburgs. All right? Okay. So first cousins share 12.5%. First double cousins share more. Double cousins, all right? And from the same families, brother and sister, have kids, and those kids have kids, and they get married, and these are double second cousins, these are double first cousins, and it really gets crazy. The numbers that you get due to endogamy. And Jewish people are endogamous because they live in close quarters, because of persecution, because of religious purposes, because they were isolated by the neighboring population. So they tend to marry within themselves. That's what endogamy is, marrying. Here's an interesting case. See this lovely lady here? We've been married 50 years as of last month. Thank you. And her husband, who's of 2 months. Okay? They have an 18 centimorgans of data between them. Kinda fourth or remote cousins. I married my cousin. But you don't know. Who knows? It's when you know. It's the problem.
Don't they have something in Iceland about that?
In Iceland?
Yeah.
I was in Iceland last year, and I was busy in the Blue Lagoon.
I think there's some kind of dating app.
Could be. So here's that common relative, Leibush, Yehuda Leib. He had 11 children. And one of them was my great-grandmother, Esther Leah Sinowitz. And he had also, one of his sons was Zelig. He married Miriam. She married Avraham Bagan, changed his name, family changed their name to Bloom. Okay, here's my grandfather. Here's his first wife, Elke Baum. Gives birth to Simcha Begun. Here's Simcha. Simcha changes his name later on to Jake Cohn so he can get lost. Okay? Zelig, one of his children, Lily, and here is Lily, Rivka Leah. Here's Lily. Here's Jake Cohn, Simcha. Okay? Gets married, and they have kids. Marries his first cousin once removed. Okay? Great people, I know them. They're not as crazy as me. And so, you know, this is Lily, it's her brother, Leah Sinowitz, changed his name to Harry Simon Kahar. So there's all kinds of crazy relationships here, okay? You know, this Lily is wife of the half-brother and first cousins once removed. My mother, who was Betty Bloom, okay? And Lily, okay, who I always call my aunt. Kind of have a strange relationship. Don't ask me how many second organs. It just boggles the mind. Okay? Now, Harry and his wife Dora have a son. His name is Stanley Simon. Anybody from the Bronx? Do you remember Stanley Simon, Bronx Borough president?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, that's Stanley. Okay? Here's Stanley with Mayor Koch, who said they didn't know him. All right, and Elston Howard at Yankee Stadium. Here he's as the Bronx Borough president. Okay? Took a graph and applied, caught, went up the river. He's out now, he's in his 90s, he's still kicking. And he's still practicing law, he's doing wills and stuff. Well, that's it. That's what endogamy will cause. Coach Brooks and the reason that they changed to Simon and Simcha changing his name to Jake Cohn is in 1917 they went to Chicago, set themselves up with new identities, as tailors to avoid being driven in the First World War. So not only is he a crook, his dad was a crook.
Wow.
Okay, so GenMatch. I love GenMatch. Because now I can really go back and visit. By the way, if you can get a hold of this, First People's a PBS special, it's 2 discs. On Amazon has it for half price. If you go to PBS, it's $28. Amazon has it for $14, I think. It talks about, there's 5 episodes about the origins of man, about all kinds of things. In the first episode, they talk about the National Geographic Project and Kennewick Man. This man was kind of revered by Native Americans. His burial spot was considered sacred. And here comes National Geographic, and they decide they're going to take his DNA. Kind of smells like he has no DNA that compares to Native Americans. Native American lobby sues National Geographic, has shut down the project, and keep the results quiet.
Oh,
Because he's still revered as the ancient one. So, here's possibly a cousin Lucy, Australopithecus, found in Haida, Ethiopia. Here's old Dubai Gorge, where there are more. I will be there in December to see where my ancient cousins are. And what else can I tell you? So I got intrigued here. I said, oh, let's look at...
Leakey found Lucy?
Yes, he found Lucy. This is Lucy.
Oh,
Okay? That's Lucy, Australopithecus, which is a cousin of Homo erectus. Okay? Homo erectus and Homo sapien. That's what we I knew it was some kind of a homo. So here's Putin's ancestor. This is the Neanderthal. And I was intrigued by this particular one, because it's so much. I shared this much DNA with this fossil called Rathlin 1 in Ireland. Whoa! Whoa! Ireland! Oh, now I'm getting into the weeds here. So Rathlin Island currently has a population of 150. It's just off the coast of Northern Ireland, facing Scotland. And it says the world's highest frequency of genetic variants that code for lactose persistent. No lactate needed. The ability to drink milk into adulthood, and certain genetic diseases, including one called excessive iron retention called hemochromatosis. My son has hemochromatosis. And he can only get it because I have a carrier and my wife is a carrier. Okay? Yeah, he got to watch the meat he eats. He has to give blood twice a year to get rid of it. But he leads a fairly normal life. It's not that uncommon, particularly amongst Jews. Okay? Maybe 1 in 100. Lots of people don't even know they have it. Because it's kind of mild. And mutation came about because inability to iron poor diets, so the body adapted. So apparently, I'm carrying some DNA from this fossil in Ireland. All right, we're all together. Okay, so now I want to just jump off the DNA track because the rest of most of the presentation revolves around a town in Belarus, what was Poland at the time, called Pinsk. Okay, Pinsk was the target of many things, including in April of 1919, something called the Pinsk Massacre. And here's the New York Times article almost a month later, reporting about how Jews were tortured and flogged and some murdered, okay, demanded 100,000 marks and threatened to Jewish leaders if that sum was not paid within 24 hours. Well, this is the town, and I don't know if you can see these green lines, but that's Karolinska Street. That's where my mother lived. Got that off of a manifest. Okay? In 1921, the year she migrated and left, 75% of the population was Jewish. Okay? Here's the main synagogue. Her brother's passport, which I got a lot of stuff from. Okay? And of course, Menachem Begin, same last name, also came from that town. No connection found yet. Okay? So they came, here's the train station, they went west, that means this direction on the train, and they made their journey to America. Now,
I had a question.
yes,
How did you get the manifest with your, with the address and streets like?
it says the person who left in the old country, and it said Caroline, the only street that's close to that in Pence was Karolinska. So whoever heard it and wrote it. Now, a lot of things that manifest is what they heard, or it was on their visa or on their passport that was transcribed by someone in an embassy who heard it, or police, police where they issue visas and passports. So a lot of this is transcribed from verbal stuff. Okay? And here is my uncle's passport. I happen to have two of my uncle's passports right here. And it was officiated by Jerome Claw Huddle, who I researched. In fact, I know where he's buried. He became ambassador to Burma under Henry Truman. So here, on August 7th, 1925, fire broke out in town, which destroyed a third of the buildings, including the main synagogue, which is back here. But my mother, and now this is dated July 28, 1921, that was issued in Warsaw. Went to Warsaw to get this passport officiated visa. So by 3 days later, they were already in the Netherlands, waiting to take a ferry over to England, take the Great Central Railroad to Liverpool. I have the records. So here's the stamp from Rosenthal. Here we go. So, here's my mom and the family. All right? Gittel Begun and her 4 children. Waiting for them was a husband. Okay? These detained aliens. They were immigrating under bond. It's insurance policy. You set up with an agency to watch you as you go. There are a lot of people, especially in England, when they transmigrating through England, and say, your ship is never going to come. Okay, I'll give you your tickets, and they sent them off to South Africa, or they sent them off to somewhere else, and they cashed in the more expensive ticket. It was a con game. A lot of people wound up in places where they shouldn't go. So their immigration from beginning to end was watched. It was immigration under bond. And guess who's on this same ship? My dad and his family, right? Hessel Dufine Gershman and her 6 children. There was a story that he is the proof of it. So they said, oh, we came over on the same ship. Yeah, yeah. Okay? Right? And because they were on the first day, they came on the 4th, it was Sunday, nothing gets done. Labor Day was a brand new holiday. Nobody worked. The next day, Tuesday, the processing of all these people. They sent out runners, because it's under bond, to tell them that your relative is here. So they go contact the grandfathers, all right? Moshe Begun, Morris Bloom, and Sam Dufresne. Sam Gershman, sorry. And they're discharged at the same time at 12:30. They're standing on line together, and they don't know each other. A family of 7, a family of 5, young kids. The only other people online at that time, because we have the record here of when they were discharged, was a couple and a single man. So these kids are flying around, and obviously, they're kind of, well, who knows? They're kind of playing. What a story. And that's 1935 when they actually got married.
Now you have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So everybody who is detained because they're on
No.
trial? Sorry.
No. Some people were detained for medical reasons. They were sent to the infirmary, and it would determine whether they got better, they were suitable. Some people were detained because of some other, I guess, bureaucratic reason. Those that were allowed to come in were allowed to come in. And I have an instance of somebody who was sent to the hospital because they were considered stupid. They acted funny because they were acting up. And they put them there, they found that they weren't, so they let them in. Sometimes those things happen. They say, verdreht. Verdreht. Verdreht, yeah. Verklempt, no? Anyway, so this is the story of that. So just finish up with this pants deal. Here's a picture of my mother who's sitting. This was taken in Pence just prior to leaving. Why? It's under bond. Dad has to show up and identify you. So they needed a picture of what you look like, a recent picture. So this was sent in. Okay? And I had a third cousin from my Sinowitz branch, and he was there, and I said, "Would you do find me Karolinska Street?" Well, this is what the kid, it's not called Karolinska Street, and none of these houses exist back in 21. So, but that's the street. And of course, I love AI sometimes. And it allows you to do things like this. Colorize, really good. So they came to America, they wound up on Stone Avenue in Brooklyn, Brownsville. Okay, now it's called Mother Gaston Boulevard. And this is 615 Stone. Thank goodness for the 1940 tax database, real estate database. Get such great pictures. Steve Morse.
Yes.
Okay, Steve Morse's site. Okay, and this is that Sinowitz tree, who also came from Pence. The Bay Gun tree is a subset. The blooms are a subset of the Sinowitz tree. Spelled Sinowitz, Americanized. The Polish spelling, a C is pronounced as an S. Like CCCP is SSSR. It's not a P, it's a row. It's a Greek-letter row. It's a project that 10 cousins got together and found each other in 1998. We started working on this tree. Okay? And of course, here's Walter. I stop here because, again, I mentioned matronymic surnames. Anyway, matronymic surnames. So here's the other Moshe, not Moshe Rabbeinu, but Moshe Kaminsky, who adapted his mother's name, Kate Brookman, from Kate Brookman, but it wouldn't fit on the drum. So he shortened it to Brooks. He shortened Melvin to Mel Brooks. Okay? But he used his mother's surname. Okay, so in 2001, this chart never existed before until I decided to do something about it. I got an email from Barry Sinowitz, losing in Long Island. He's now in California, in Beverly Hills. and he says to me, you know, I saw your name, Sinowitz. He says, and he spells it with a C, okay, the old Polish spelling. And he says, I don't know if we're related. He says, but I'm looking for an uncle, my father's, what I think is my uncle, a guy who fought as a partisan during World War II. And his name was Joseph Sinowitz, like my father, Joseph, except if you read the headstone, it's Yehuda. But he called himself Joseph. So two Josephs, what's the likelihood? Maybe they have an ancestor named Joseph. So I start looking, I find this guy's immigration card with his wife, Urka, okay, who was also a partisan. And kind of sits. And then in 2018, Maya Sinowitz, living in Canada, born in Israel, contacts me. She says, do we have a connection? So I kept old emails, 17 years, and I wrote a letter to Barry and said, Barry, I think I found this guy you're looking for, Joseph, one of his writers. Because she says, that's her father. He says, oh, yeah, okay, great. So we start comparing notes. And we start digging into it, and I go to Yad Vashem, and I'm able to put this together. Now, I don't know if they're actually connected yet. But obviously, since you see the tree here, they are. And due to DNA. So my second greatest achievement. Okay, so we ran this test, okay? Everybody in blue had their DNA already done, or we asked them to do it, including Barry and Maya. Barry did his Y DNA, 37 SNPs, and I did the big Y, which is 700 SNPs. Okay, that puts him in South Central Asia, 25,000 years ago, and puts me even closer in Persia, 3,500 years ago. Where did you come from? What are you made of? It was way before Ahasuerus and Esther. It was before. It was actually before Abraham. So here I am. I'm testing RM124, my Y DNA. I contact Stanley Sinowitz, who has a direct Sinowitz line, and said, Stanley, he's a Philadelphia lawyer. No, seriously, he's from Philadelphia. And he tested RM269, subclade of R1b Western Europe. Not Semitic, at least not this level. Here's Labush's 11 children. The ones with the blue dots are undocumented, although we have, in the past month, made some progress on this. I think we found that branch. There are like 6 people working on it. And we're about to do a DNA test very similar because it's yielded a lot of things. So having done that, I back-populated the male generations and found that they're kind of related to both Shmuel Sinowitz. They're a second cousin. They are actually second cousins. These two people who have been looking for each other for years. So it was nice, good, I put something together, I did something good. I did a mitzvah. Not that I'm collecting them. So this one back-populated and back down, and we don't have the same male ancestor. How can that be? We came from Pensk. Everybody came from Pensk. How could 2 Sinowitz branches not be related? Okay, this involves a little bit more. So here's the data. I had everybody give me as much as they could. They went to their tree and looked at their matches. And again, here are those 3 unrelated X matches that I showed before. These are not Jews here. Okay? And here's Barry and Maya below the bald line. Here's how I relate to all my cousins, my third cousins, some of them further than third cousins. And we find that Maya and Barry have centimeter maps. You might want to look at your chart. That's very in the range of second cousins. So that kind of proves that out. Longest block of 56, that's long. Anything above in that range is definitely. Okay? And, but we notice something really interesting. I have a match to this Barry. It's 76 centimeters. Why should I have a match at all if we're not related through the name Sinowitz name? And so I have to think about this. It was only months later that it came to me. We'll get there. Okay, so the branch relationship was not conclusive. Sinowitz pins and their name rarity. Keep looking. I'm still waiting for the 1897 All Russia census, which would solve lots of problems if we can get it. Only little snippets have been done. The other choice is that this guy Stanley on the Sinowitz tree is adopted. Someone in his line is not a Sinowitz. Or some other reason. So I need another male Sinowitz, which nobody stepped forward because the Y test is very expensive. So here's what occurred to me. And we'll take a look here. That maybe he has, this guy related to Maya and Barry, has a matronymic last name. In other words, he didn't get it from his father. Okay? Here's a case of it further down on that tree. Here's Rachel. We don't know who this guy is, but apparently he conceived, Rachel conceived his son, and called Chaim, and his professional name is Zinovich. Here's his record album. And she named her son after her 4-year-old brother. Interesting stories. So we suspect, well, he's obviously got a matronymic surname. Maybe it occurred further up on the chart. That's the only thing I can tell. Of course, we see enough DNA to say there's somewhere on this tree. So what about this Y? Barry and I have the same Y chromosome, and yet we don't have the same common ancestor. We can't find it. Here's the key to this, and it's the best I can tell you. Here's Barry, okay? He also is RM124, okay? He has a genetic distance from me of 3 steps. Genetic distance, measured genetic divergence between species or between populations within species. A distance measured from a common ancestor, degree of differentiation. Kind of how many mutations,
right?
Okay. So, oh, look at this. Who is this? Okay. So here's this chart. I forget where I got it. Okay, it says he tested 37 markers. There's 37 markers and 3 difference. We're related somehow on the Y chromosome. In the probability of 12 generations, 77% possibility. So somewhere, okay, at least at 24 generations, almost 100%. Okay? Smaller percentage, 4 generations back. So we're still related, maybe twice. One through our autosomal DNA, and one through our Y chromosome. If that wasn't enough, okay? DNA is matching a process of sequencing your DNA compared to the DNA of other people. The person's significant amount of DNA identical to yours indicate you have a common ancestor. Autosomal DNA can only go back 6 generations. It's stretching that now, you can go back a little further. I think, as things get better. Y chromosomes and mitochondria do not experience recombination and are passed down virtually unchanged, give you an idea of your ancient ancestors. They do mutate, creating new haplogroups. Males have an X and a Y, X from mom, Y from dad. Females have an X, a full X from dad, and a recombined one from mom. DNA results often do not prove a genetic connection and are more accurately disproving a connection. You have a close match and you can't identify a known family member. Maybe there's adoption, maybe there's metronomics, disassociation from the family, a name translation, an Americanization, and a whoops. And again, as more people are tested, the results are better. What happened to the lost tribes of Israel? Will DNA conclusively solve the mystery? Maybe. Not this year. Okay, so here's one of those things. Okay, you read Hebrew. It's Gephon from that means crash and burn. So this guy, I see, he's got a tree online. I says, you show my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother as yours as well. And he says, I have a strong DNA match to Tim Gershman. I says, Tim is my cousin's son. I've added my grandfather, Joe Gershman, as son of our great-grandfather and great-grandmother. Not possible, you're mistaken. You have documentary proof. I show him that they both came from Mizheretz, Ukraine. There were 4 Gershman families from that town, and no proof of relation found between. Gershman is a common name in the Ukraine. Well, there's the DNA match. Well, if your connection was through a common Gershman ancestor, then you would have even a stronger match to me. I've checked, you don't have any match to me. Maybe your connection is through Tim's mother. His maiden name is Cohen. In Dago. Oh, where should I look? Okay, I'll help you, but you need to Google genealogical proof standard. Okay? And there are so many bad data out there online, and people are copying an assumption. I mean, one person who has a connection to me has got my grandmother in Houston, Texas. What? She made it to the Catskills, maybe. And then she had to go out of state to New Jersey to get it. And of course, Mark says, nanu nanu. Okay, so here's that ethical dilemma. This science always prevails, can ever equal for God. Semitic, genetically. Jewish, spiritually, yes. Culturally, Ashkenazi, gastronomically, absolutely. Okay? Couldn't we go to the cave of Machpelah, okay, the tomb of the patriarchs, and extract DNA from the bones of our ancestors? That would end the discussion of who was a Jew. Well, he's maybe a Hebrew. Jews and Hebrews. Jews is an ethnicity. Jews is a religion. Hebrew is an ethnicity. Should not be confused because there were a lot of people who came out of Egypt who were not Hebrew, who adopted the Torah, Mount Sinai, Moses, the tablets came down, and followed the traditions and the beliefs of the Jews. And some of us are descendant of that. Okay? So, are you walking a tightrope? Gehenna, right? Hell. Okay? What did Tevi say? If I bend that floor, I'll break. What were the Native Americans that Kennewick, Reed Berry? Why would I go and dig up my most sacred ancestors and extract their DNA? I don't want to know. Yeah, I want to know, but I don't want to know. Disturb my bones of my most sacred ancestors. Wars were fought over more things than that. Less things than So, I tested with family tree DNA, and then I came across this chart. By the way, here's the image, okay? And of course, that has to do with the kitchen, okay? Everybody knows what a ribeye is, and hopefully a hakmessa, we call it a mezzaluna today,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this chart, and I'm saying, wait a second, I'm way down here. I don't have a lot of matches. I want to test with Ancestry. And so I did. And I'm glad I did. I have not tested with 23andMe yet, but I have obviously contributed to some of these other databases, raw data, MyHeritage and GenMatch. So one of the things that Ancestry does, it does this through lines. It takes data from you and other people, and it puts it together in this kind of a tree. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So I want to skip over this because we're running out of time, but it solved the mystery for me. And okay, so I get this match on this Nico McClung. And she has 246 centimorgans of data, and a lot of stuff, and it matches, and I have no idea who McClung is. So I contact her. And she hooks me up with her mother, Karen. All right? She has this tree. And her mother's mother, okay, is Gloria Bloom. Oh, Bloom. And her father is Louis Bloom. Okay, so this is Gloria. That's her brother Alan, who invented of copper bright roach proof. Okay, and the family wound up in Hawaii eventually. And if this holds true, then my mother and her, also AI recolor, are first cousins, and we don't know about each other. My mother never mentioned it. And she has a sister, Karen, who's Catholic Knight, said, look, I'm going to send you some stuff in the mail, some DNA kits. Take them. So Karen comes back as 402 centimorgans. Whoa! And her sister comes back as 580 or 560 centimorgans match. I go, oh my God, what is this? And they give me access so I can look at their matches. They give me access to go to their file. Here's my grandfather. We couldn't find him for hell of beans. Eventually, we got the petition for naturalization. It said what ship he was on. He's misindexed as Hoisha Bellum, not Moishe Begun. Okay? He had a brother that we know his name is Laser, who came looking for him at 313 Dumont Avenue in Brooklyn. We know that Laser changed his name to Louis Bloom. That's all we knew about him. Nothing else. I'm stoked here, okay? In fact, here he is. That's the excerpt. Okay. A couple more slides there. So, here's Louis Bloom, okay? Excerpt from his record. His father is Abraham Bloom. That's mine. And Esther, who happens to be Esther Sinowitz. That's good. So we test. There are no Blooms to compare against in Ancestry. Only Sinowitzes. And here's my third cousins who will have tested. Here's Karen's result, Kathleen's result. It's a match. It's enough to satisfy me and genealogical proof standing high, both family law and data. And along the way, I go back and look at my grandfather's immigration record, and something I missed. He was coming to see his brother-in-law, Leib Joseph Parsky. His brother-in-law. How did I miss that? And so I start building that tree out. And sure enough, I come up with Chana Basret Avraham. She has another name here which I can't read. Not clear. Sarah, I don't know. Anyway, so here's a record for her son. It says Louis Parsky, Anna Parsky, and her maiden name was Begun, or Begun. Okay, that's a hit. That means that she is my grandfather system, I'm also satisfied. And of course, we started building out the tree. It's kind of amazing. So here's that begun tree subset in Sinowitz tree. The thing is, and Lee Wiesen said it in the movie Coco, echoed it, if you saw that movie, the Disney movie. There's no one left in living room who remembers you disappear from them. You call it the final death. Lee Wiesen said it's like killing people the second time if we lose it. We can change that. We've been given a time machine. If you can remember King Tut, why can't we remember this? All right? Ask anybody on the street, what was your great-grandfather's name? 90% of the time they can't. How can we let them die? Time is the thief of memory. And there we go. Guess who? I'm almost done. This originally started as over a 2-hour presentation. I cut out half the slides. Okay. Son of Abraham? Which branch? Did I come down an Arab branch and adopt Judaism? Or am I a descendant of Abraham? I believe this to be true. Okay? Here's a question, and of course this is 23andMe and Yiddish blog. Okay? Someone who he's got Irish Protestant Catholic, and he shows markers for Ashkenazi. Someone had sex with a Jew. That's simple as that. Okay? And don't always believe what other people have put in. You've got to prove it yourself. Okay, so Jews are fought over much less. Okay, obviously, these are cousins. Not mine, but they're cousins. Any questions?
Herb, I know you've done.
I know I ran through this book.
You've done a lot of research looking at endogamy and DNA. Do you have some questions or observations for Al?
No, that was pretty comprehensive, I would say. I learned a few things that,
I learned a lot. Thank you. I took notes. Thank you very much.
To me, there's something so emotional about finding documents
Oh, yeah.
that confirm the stories that you've heard all your life sometimes. I found a Russian cousin living in Buffalo, New York. Her grandmother had a story that she had a ticket to the United States in her hand, and she couldn't get out of Russia because of World War I. I had found an immigrant bank receipt that my grandfather had buying a ticket for someone named E. Wolfson. I had no idea who it was. It was my grandmother's sister. But when I made that discovery, having that document,
We were doing this last one here with these people, Alan with the roach proof and the capital. Apparently they had, sisters had become distant from them. They hadn't seen each other in years. So over the course of researching this, those two families are now back together. So you kind of, great stuff comes out of this.
Do you have any, do you want to elaborate on the taking of the mother's maiden name, the mother's name?
Okay, so I'll give you an example of a fellow I used to work with over in Brooklyn, Ray McLaughlin. Okay, Ray said, I'm looking for this family called South in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Dutch and Irish. What? He says, yeah. He says, they changed their name because they hated the other side of the family. They didn't want to be associated with them. So they changed their name from McLaughlin to South. What? People do things all the time, okay? My brother-in-law. All right, my wife's maiden name is Gluck, meaning luck. So how lucky. Her brother's name is Blaine. Anyone have a Jewish name? Why he picked Blaine? I don't know. I haven't seen him since my wedding.
I know in my generation, I'm 59, but I have a lot of friends whose middle names are their mother's maiden names. John Roth Garrow,
Oh, yeah, that's
Timothy Garrett Madison.
common
friends of mine.
practice.
And now I have to tell you real quick, my son got married last year to Alon Goldstein. He's 32. His name, he was born with Jared Max Friedman, named for my dad and wife's grandfather was Max. He changed his name on his own. We said, okay, what's the decision? So he took his wife's maiden name. So now he's Jared Goldstein Friedman.
Oh,
Has anybody had that happen to their family? Where
Well, we had draft lodges who changed it.
so their kids, so the kids of my grandchildren, eventually, who will be their fathers will know him as Jared
Sure.
Goldstein Friedman. They'll know why.
People change the names. They just, whatever. I mean, look
I had
at Bernie Schwartz, all right?
Tony Curtis.
Tony
That's
Curtis.
right.
The, just to get back to your question, I have an ancestor, on my mother's side, the last name was Dobrzynska. And when he married his wife, she was a Landau, and he wanted to show great respect for his father-in-law, so that Dobrzynska became a Landau. It's for that reason. I have a half-nephew, his last name is Morales. He never met his grandfather, my father, and to show him respect, he's changed his name last name from Morales to my dad's birth name. Last name is Monk. So it's going to be tough down the road. If we don't keep really good records for all of our, all of our descendants, they can understand these things. We have to write them down.
Go back the other way.
Yeah, or go back up the other way. Yeah.
In my husband's family, there was a great uncle who was sort of the first to come to the U.S. and he was called Uncle Pinkus. He was sort of like the patriarch of the family. He, it turns out, took his wife's name when he married her because he thought his last name was too complicated and her last name was Sachs. So he took the name Sachs. Then he told his great-grandparents when they came to the country, I took the name Sachs, you took the name Sachs. So they took the name Sachs too. So you can imagine what I went through trying to figure out what their names really were.
Here's the stranger. I worked for a guy by the name of Sam Schwartz. And I said, Sam, I says, and I started, he says, I'm not Jewish. He says, what? He says, yeah, we came from England. The name was Black. I said, so how do you wind up with Schwartz? He says, I have no idea. I have no idea. Came from England. It couldn't be, nobody was given a name in Ellis Island. Let's clear up that mystery.
Right.
No, we know that. Yeah.
Sometimes in Russia, the government did not recognize a Jewish marriage. And so when kids when their names were registered, they had to take the mother's name because the Tsar does not recognize the parents as married. So.
That's another part of the presentation that was cut.
So,
That's.
I worked for a colonel whose last name was Threefoot, Threefot. He was not American Indian. He was German. His grandfather's name was Dreyfus, which if you convert it, is 3 and foot. But when he came over here, he wanted to Americanize it, so he made Threefoot. So track that one back.
I got a bridge for sale.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Oh my gosh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know, I apologize again that our systems weren't up and running
We'll
to the
get it
point where you could show
We'll
all
get
of
it
the
fixed.
fancy
Guaranteed.
animation. Yeah, I'll fix it for the next time.
Thanks, Debbie. Thank
That's
you,
all right.
everybody.
Barbara,
Thank you.
you have some closing words for us, Barbara? We'll kibitz and eat all the carbs.
No, it was just great to be with everybody
Yes.
today, and I think this location was easy to find.
Yes.
Plenty of parking.
Yeah.
But our next meeting is Zoom on October 29th.
Right, and then we will have a Hanukkah party
Oh,
in
good.
December, and we will see if we can get some door prizes going again. That was fun. A popular item. Yeah.
Do we know where we're at?
Hanukkah party?
No.